Hogwarts. Who hasn't collected a Horcrux? Chapter 71. Hagrid stomped over and hid something behind his back. He looked out of place in his moleskin coat. Just take a look. Hagrid's voice was evasive, and he immediately aroused their interest. What are you doing here? He suddenly looked suspicious. Still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are you? Oh, we figured out who he was hundreds of years ago, Ron said proudly. We also know what the dog is guarding. It's the Philosopher's Stone. Shish. Hagrid glanced quickly around to see if anyone had heard. Stop shouting, what on earth do you want to do? To be honest, we have a few things we want to ask you, Harry said, about the mechanism that protects the Philosopher's Stone. In addition to Fluffy. Shish. Hagrid quickly signaled to lower the voice. Listen. You guys come see me later. But remember. I didn't promise to tell you anything, so don't talk nonsense here, there are some things students shouldn't know. They'll think I told you. See you later, then. Hagrid stomped off. What's he hiding behind this? Hermione asked thoughtfully. Do you think it has something to do with the Philosopher's Stone? I'll go see what book he was looking for. Ron stood up. He had been reading for a long time and was getting a little impatient. A minute later, he came back with a pile of books in his arms and threw them heavily on the table. Dragons. He whispered. Hagrid is looking up information about dragons. Look at these books. Dragon species in Britain and Ireland close double angle bracket open double angle bracket from dragon egg to hell close double angle bracket open double angle bracket guide to raising a fire dragon close double angle bracket. Hagrid has always wanted a dragon. He told me so when we first met. Harry said. William nodded and said, that's true. He also mentioned it to me many times. Hagrid likes those huge magical animals very much. But it's illegal, Ron said. In the 1709 Wizard Conference, a bill was officially passed to ban the breeding of dragons. Everyone knows this. If we kept dragons in our back gardens, it would be hard to keep them from being noticed by muggles, and they would be hard to tame, which would be dangerous. You should see all those burns on Charlie's body from when he was chasing away wild dragons in Romania. But aren't there wild dragons in Britain? Harry said. As far as I know, there are actually some wild dragons in Britain, such as the Welsh Green Dragon and the Hebridean Black Dragon. Ron nodded and said, what William said is right. In fact, one of the tasks of the Ministry of Magic is to conceal the existence of these wild dragons. Our wizards often have to cast spells on muggles who see wild dragons so that they forget all about it. So what does Hagrid want to do? Hermione said. William lowered his voice and said, I think his long-cherished wish may have come true. Hermione and the other two's eyes widened immediately. Harry said hesitantly, William, do you mean that Hagrid may have really raised a dragon? No way. This is against the law. Ron was a little unconvinced. What exactly happened will be clear when we go to Hagrid later. There is no point in guessing now. William did not argue. After all, everything would be clear when he met Hagrid. An hour later, after finishing their homework, they knocked on the door of the gamekeeper's cottage. They were surprised to find that all the curtains were drawn tightly. Hagrid first shouted, Who is it? Before letting them in, and then quickly turned around and closed the door. The cottage was suffocatingly hot. Despite such a warm and sunny day, there was a blazing fire in the fireplace. Hagrid made them tea and brought them stoat sandwiches, but they politely declined. So, you have something to ask me? Yes. Harry felt there was no need to beat around the bush and ask directly, we want to know what other mechanisms are there to protect the Philosopher's Stone besides Fluffy. I wonder if you could tell us, Hagrid. Hagrid frowned at them. Of course I can't tell you. First, I don't know. Second, you already know too much, so even if I knew something, I wouldn't tell you. That stone makes sense here. It was nearly stolen from Gringotts, but I suppose you guys have that figured out, too. I really don't understand how you know about Fluffy. William said with a smile, have you forgotten? You were the one who told us about Fluffy the three-headed dog. You said Dumbledore had borrowed it to guard something. Hagrid slapped his forehead when he heard William's words, feeling that he was too talkative. Okay, but I really don't know about the other things, so it's useless for you to ask. Oh, Hagrid, I think you probably don't want to tell us, but you must know. Nothing that happens here can escape your eyes. Hermione said in a flattering tone. Hagrid's messy beard trembled, and William and the others saw that he was laughing. Hermione continued. In fact, we just want to know who designed those mechanisms. We want to know, besides you, who else does Dumbledore trust to help him? Hagrid straightened his chest after hearing the last sentence. Hagrid is pretty easy to coax. As long as you flatter him and say that he is the person Dumbledore trusts the most, he will let down his guard. As expected. Hagrid, with a satisfied smile on his face, began to speak to William and the others. Well, it doesn't hurt to tell you. Hearing Hagrid's words, Harry and Ron secretly gave Hermione a thumbs up. Great. William's attention was no longer here. After all, he also knew what Hagrid knew. His eyes were now cast into the fireplace. In the center of the blazing fire, under the kettle, lay a big black egg. If William guessed correctly, it should be a dragon egg. A Norwegian Ridgeback dragon egg. I really want it. Hagrid scratched his head and said, let me think. He borrowed Fluffy from me, and then asked several other teachers to cast a spell. He counted on his fingers, Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall, Professor Quirrell, and of course, Dumbledore himself had cast a spell. Wait, I forgot one person. Oh, and Professor Snape. Snape? Harry asked in surprise. Yes, are you still doubting him? Snape is also helping to protect the Philosopher's Stone, he won't steal it. Since Snape also participated in the work of protecting the Philosopher's Stone, it must be easy for him to find out what traps other teachers set up. He probably knew everything, except for Quirrell's magic and how to get through Fluffy. You're the only one who knows how to get past Fluffy, aren't you, Hagrid? You won't tell anyone, will you? Not even the teacher, will you? Harry asked eagerly, hoping that his guess was right. No one except me and Dumbledore can know. Hagrid said proudly. That's good, that's good. Harry was relieved. Seeing that Harry and Hagrid had finished talking, William pointed to the dragon egg in the fire and asked, Hagrid, where did you get the dragon egg? Hagrid twisted his beard uncomfortably. Hermione and the others also looked over curiously. In the middle of the fire, under the kettle, lay a large black egg. Hagrid, I didn't expect you to really want to raise a dragon. This dragon egg must have cost you a lot of money. Ron also said. Hagrid could no longer hide it, so he simply told the truth. I won this last night when I was drinking in the village and playing cards with a stranger. To be honest, that person probably wants to get rid of it. But what are you going to do when it hatches? Hermione asked. Oh, I've been reading. Hagrid said, pulling a large book from under his pillow. Borrowed from the library, open double angle bracket Raising Dragons for Pleasure and Profit close double angle bracket. Of course, it's a bit outdated, but the content is complete. To put the eggs in the fire, because their mother breathes on them. You see, it says here, when it hatches, feed it a bucket of chicken blood brandy every half hour. Look here, how to tell the difference between the eggs. I got a Norwegian Ridgeback, which is quite rare. He looked very pleased with himself, but Hermione did not. Hagrid, don't forget you live in a wooden house. Hermione reminded him. But Hagrid didn't listen at all. He fiddled with the fire and hummed happily. Hagrid absolutely loves dragons. The smile on his face was from the bottom of his heart. William was thinking about how to get this Norwegian Ridgeback from Hagrid. It is definitely not possible now, because after the dragon egg hatched, Hagrid raised it as his son, just like a male mother. But in the original book, Malfoy followed Harry and the others and spied on Hagrid raising a dragon. In addition, the dragon grew rapidly and it seemed that it could not be concealed. So Harry proposed to join forces. William was Ron's second brother Charlie, because Charlie was raising a dragon in Romania. Hagrid finally had to send it away reluctantly and let Charlie, who was far away in Romania, take over. William thought this was actually a good opportunity. At that time, he would not have to contact Charlie at all, but would adopt the dragon himself. In this way, Hagrid could still visit it from time to time, which was simply killing two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, William planned to wait and see what would happen next, and it would be better to intervene less. But now, Harry and the others had something new to worry about. What would happen to Hagrid if someone found out that he was illegally raising a dragon in his hut? I really want to know what a peaceful and tranquil life is like. Ron sighed. Night after night, they struggled to complete a lot of homework assigned by the teacher. Then, during breakfast one day, Hedwig brought Harry another note from Hagrid. Hagrid only wrote 4 words on it: hatching soon. Ron didn't want to go to the herbology class, he wanted to go straight to Hagrid's hut. But Hermione firmly disagreed. Hermione, how many times in our lifetime can we see a Charmander hatch? We have to go to class or we'll get in trouble. If anyone finds out what Hagrid has done, he'll be in worse trouble than us. Stop talking, Harry warned quietly. Malfoy, who was only a few steps away from them, stopped to listen to them. Harry hated the look on Malfoy's face. William had been silent until then. All right, stop arguing. After the herbology class, let's take advantage of the morning break to go see Hagrid. William made the final decision, and Ron and Hermione compromised. When the class was over, as soon as the bell rang in the castle, they threw down their shovels, hurried across the grounds, and ran towards the cabin on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Malfoy noticed that they hurried out of the greenhouse and hurriedly followed them. But he was afraid that William and the others would discover them, so he just followed them from a distance until he saw them enter Hagrid's cabin, then he quickened his pace. Harry and the others were now concentrating on the hatching of the Charmander, and they didn't notice that someone was following them. What's more, Malfoy was far away from them, and he might not be able to discover them even under normal circumstances. Hagrid greeted them. His face was flushed and he was very excited. It's almost out. He led William and the others into the hut. The egg was lying on the table, with a deep crack on it. Something was constantly moving inside, making a funny clicking sound. It was the first time for William and the others to see a little fire dragon hatch. They couldn't help but move their chairs closer to the table, holding their breath and watching closely. Suddenly, with a sharp scraping sound, the dragon egg cracked. The little fire dragon fluttered and swayed on the table. It didn't actually look beautiful. William thought it looked like a wrinkled black umbrella. Its thorny wings looked particularly large compared to its thin black body. It also had a long nose with white nostrils, horns on its head, and orange-red eyes protruding outward. It sneezed, and a few sparks came out of its nose. It's beautiful, isn't it? Hagrid murmured. He reached out a hand and touched the little dragon's head. The little dragon bit his finger, revealing its sharp fangs. Oh my god, look, it knows its mother. Hagrid exclaimed. William didn't see this at all, and Hagrid was a half-giant, a strong man of more than 3 meters, why would he think he was a mother? Suddenly his ears moved slightly, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The next moment, Hagrid's face turned pale, he jumped up and ran to the window. What happened? Someone just peeked through the cracks in the curtains. It's a boy. Running into the school. Hagrid's voice was a little flustered. Harry rushed to the door and looked out. Even at a distance, he would never mistake it. Malfoy saw the little dragon. Who is it? Harry, do you recognize it? It's Malfoy, he will definitely go to Dumbledore to tell on him. Harry said with certainty. In the next week, Malfoy had a malicious smile on his face. This made Harry and his friends feel very uneasy. They spent most of their spare time in Hagrid's dim hut, telling him the truth. Just let it go, Harry advised, let it go. I can't, said Hagrid. It's too small. It'll die. They looked at the little dragon. In just 1 week, it had tripled in length. Puffs of smoke came out of its nostrils. Hagrid had put aside his job of guarding the game because the little dragon was making him so busy. The ground was littered with empty brandy bottles and chicken feathers. I decided to call it Norbert. Hagrid looked at the little dragon with tearful eyes. It really knows me now, you see. Norbert. Norbert. Where's mommy? Hagrid, Harry said, raising his voice, in a fortnight Norbert will be as long as your house. Malfoy may go to Dumbledore any minute. Hagrid bit his lip. I know I can't keep it forever, but I can't just throw it away. I can't. William knew it was time to act, otherwise Harry would definitely mention Charlie. In order to avoid complications, William wanted to prevent Harry from mentioning Charlie. Okay, Harry, don't get excited. Hagrid and I will talk alone. You and Ron go back first. William said. Harry calmed down and nodded. Okay, William, you talk to Hagrid, Ron and I will go back first. Harry and Ron walked to the door, and suddenly turned around and said, William, you should persuade Hagrid more. Malfoy will tell Dumbledore at any time. We don't have much time. Okay, I got it. William agreed. After Harry and Ron left, William teased Norbert while saying to Hagrid, Hagrid, are you willing to believe me? Hagrid nodded without hesitation and said, of course. Hagrid, I know you like Norbert very much, but Norbert is a Norwegian Ridgeback and is very aggressive. But it's still small and can't hurt anyone. Hagrid was like protecting his own child and wouldn't tolerate anyone saying anything bad about Norbert. It is still small and does not do much harm now, but it will eventually grow up. In just 1 to 3 months, it will be able to fully develop the ability to breathe fire, and then it will be very dangerous. Moreover, the fangs of the Norwegian Ridgeback are poisonous. They feed on large land mammals and even prey on aquatic creatures. Norbert is a Norwegian Ridgeback, so he is no exception. Have you considered the safety of others when you keep him here? Hagrid heard William say this and remembered that when he was a student at Hogwarts, he was expelled because a student was killed by a monster. Although he was wronged, he did raise a dangerous monster, the eight-eyed giant spider Aragog. This monster is still in the Forbidden Forest and has bred a huge tribe. Hagrid finally figured it out and asked, William, I get it, but Norbert is too young now. Hagrid, you know I also have a lot of animals, but aren't you curious about where I keep them? Why hasn't anyone found them? Hagrid was stunned when he heard William ask this. When Hagrid raised the eight-eyed giant spider before, he hid it in the castle dungeon. So it is natural to think that William also hid his pets in a hidden place in the castle. But since William asked this, it means that this may not be the case. After all, if you want to hide Norbert, it can't be a small place. Hagrid thought about it, but had no clue, so he asked directly, William, where did you hide them? Hagrid, do you know Newt Scamander? Mr. Scamander. Of course I know. Why are you asking? Hagrid looked at William with some confusion. Do you know how he usually carries so many magical animals with him? William asked again. It is said that he has a suitcase with a traceless extension spell, which has a lot of space inside. Mr. Scamander used this suitcase to carry things. Hagrid said this, as if he understood why William mentioned Newt. He asked in some doubt, William, do you mean, you also have a suitcase like this? William nodded calmly. Yes. William's suitcase may not be worse than Newt's now, or even better. Last Christmas holiday, William got another vanishing cabinet, and the system rewarded him with a master-level understanding of space magic. The space in the suitcase, which was originally the size of a football field, was expanded to the extreme by him, increasing more than 10 times. The master-level and master-level understanding of space magic is really a world of difference, as if heaven and earth were in mud. Hagrid felt a little incredible when he heard William's affirmative answer. William, how did you get that kind of treasure? Hagrid, there is an old saying in the East that money makes the devil work. Of course, I bought it at a high price. William said nonsense seriously, but Hagrid believed it. It was because William's real spending money last time was still fresh in Hagrid's memory and he was deeply shocked. William, do you mean to keep Norbert in your box? Since these things were mentioned, Hagrid must have thought of William's idea. William nodded. That's right. But Hagrid, you have to keep this secret for me, otherwise we will both suffer. I didn't intend to tell you this secret. After all, you should be on guard against others, but you should not have the intention to harm others. But we are friends, and I couldn't bear for you, Hagrid, to send Norbert away, so I told you this secret. Hagrid, you can't let me down. William's selfless attitude towards his friends touched Hagrid deeply. William, you trust me so much, I will definitely not tell this secret to anyone, even Professor Dumbledore. In Hagrid's heart, Professor Dumbledore is the person he respects the most and is closest to. He said that he would not tell Professor Dumbledore, which shows that Hagrid is really serious. That's good. Hagrid, there is one more thing we need to make clear. We brothers should settle accounts clearly, otherwise it will easily affect our friendship. Seeing William speak so seriously, Hagrid immediately asked, William, what are you talking about? What's the matter? Okay, let me be frank. Although Norbert was won by you, Hagrid, and you personally took care of him and hatched him, you have a deep affection for him. But from now on, it lives in my box, so I need to take care of it and bear the risks, so Norbert's ownership will be mine. Hagrid was a little reluctant to hear William's words, but he did not refute. He is a person who truly loves magical animals and only hopes that these magical animals live well, not necessarily to possess them. Okay, I understand. Although Hagrid agreed immediately, he was still sad. He looked at Norbert with tears in his eyes, as if William was the bad guy who broke up their mother and son. Seeing him like this, William couldn't help but put his hand on his forehead and said helplessly, "Okay Hagrid, don't cry, it's not like we won't see each other anymore. How about this, I will bring Norbert to see you on Saturday or Sunday in the future." When Hagrid heard this, he excitedly grabbed William's shoulders. "William, really? Really, I'm never lying to you. Okay, then we have a deal. You must bring Norbert to see me in the future." Why does William feel like he has married a wife and takes her back to her parents' home every week to visit his widowed mother? William shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Norbert is a big lizard dragon, and William is not one of those Indians who can cross any species. After discussing with Hagrid, William went back to the dormitory to get his suitcase. Hagrid teased Norbert with a loving look on his face. After all, they were about to separate. William moved quickly, and soon he was back in Hagrid's cabin. Seeing William coming in, Hagrid's face became more reluctant, and tears began to well up in his eyes again. William waved his sleeves, and the suitcase flew out. "William, can you let Norbert and I stay for one more day, just one day?" Hagrid said to William in a pleading tone. He didn't even bother to take a look at William's precious suitcase. William shook his head and refused Hagrid. "No, Hagrid. Mal may report you at any time, and you can see Norbert in the future, don't argue about 1 or 2 days." Okay. Hagrid finally gave up. William opened the suitcase and invited Hagrid, "Would you like to go in and take a look?" Hagrid looked at the suitcase, then at himself. How could he get in with such a small hole? William saw Hagrid's concerns and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I have a way." As he said that, he took out a bottle of bright green potion. "Shrinking potion, just a small drop, you will become almost as big as me." This bottle of shrinking potion was a reward for William's collection of herbs and plants. He now has a variety of potions, and he never knows when he will need them. Then take a drop. I want to see Norbert's future living environment. Hagrid was actually quite curious about the suitcase. By the way, he could also see Norbert's future living environment, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. William opened the medicine bottle, waved his wand, and a small drop of green shrinking potion flew towards Hagrid. "Open your mouth." Hagrid opened his mouth in cooperation, and the potion rushed into it. He swallowed it and didn't notice any taste at all. After a moment, the potion took effect, and Hagrid's 3-meter-tall body shrank instantly, and finally became smaller than William. William looked at Hagrid at this time and couldn't help laughing. He was only about 1.2 meters tall now, and looked a lot younger, but his original clothes became white and big, and looked like a pile of rags wrapped around him. William waved his wand and touched Hagrid's clothes, and they immediately became fit. "Oh, thank you, William." William patted his shoulder and said with a smile, "You're welcome, Hagrid, how do you feel after you become smaller?" Hagrid scratched his head and said honestly, "I feel that my strength has decreased, and the surroundings seem to have become larger, and there is no other difference." "Well, let's go in and take a look," William said, and then he carried Norbert into the suitcase, followed closely by little Hagrid. As soon as William and the others entered the suitcase, they saw a long corridor with a door at the end. There were 3 doors on each side of the corridor, and the rooms behind these doors were William's bedroom, study, potion laboratory, alchemy laboratory, collection room and kitchen. Although William rarely used the bedroom and kitchen, it was better to be prepared. William did not intend to take Hagrid to visit these rooms, and directly led him to the door at the end of the corridor. "Welcome to Cavendish Zoo and Botanical Gardens." William pushed open the door and said proudly to Hagrid. The scene outside the door stunned Hagrid. He couldn't believe that he was in a suitcase. At this moment, the scene in Hagrid's eyes was clearly a blue sky and white clouds, green grass and flowers in the near distance, and lush forests in the distance. It can be said that it is a paradise on earth. "William, is this true? Did you cast some magic on me to make me hallucinate?" Hagrid widened his eyes and asked William in doubt. William was very satisfied with Hagrid's expression at this time, and he didn't hesitate to spend time and energy to decorate this place. The sky and white clouds here are fake, in fact, they are the effects of William's magic. But the grass, flowers and trees here are real, transplanted by William. If an ordinary person were to do it, it would definitely take a lot of manpower and material resources. Fortunately, William is a wizard, and a very powerful wizard, so it is much easier. William is still very happy that his work has been recognized by others. Come on, I'll take you inside to have a look. William walked out of the door and stepped onto a bluestone path, holding the little dragon Norbert in his hand. Norbert struggled twice, but William's hand was too strong, and he had no way to break free, so he gave up. William took Hagrid around to have a look, and got to know the situation here, and told him to rest assured to leave Norbert to William's care. As the area inside was quite large, William only took Hagrid to see part of the place, and Hagrid was already very satisfied. William found a cave specifically for Norbert, placed it in it, and took some protective measures. Then he gave the prepared food to Norbert, and left the suitcase with Hagrid, who was reluctant to leave. William, can Norbert be left alone? He is still so young. And you have to go to class, so you can't always pay attention to it. What if something happens to Norbert and you can't know it in the first place? What can you do? Hagrid kept talking. His words were full of worry about Norbert and his distrust of William's ability to take good care of Norbert. William patted Hagrid's shoulder. He was only 1.2 meters tall at this time. Normally, William couldn't reach Hagrid's shoulder. Now that he had become smaller, he patted him a few more times. Hagrid, you are worrying too much. Norbert is a dragon. He is not that fragile. Besides, there is no danger in my suitcase, and I have prepared enough food for Norbert, so he will be fine. Although Hagrid was still worried, he felt that William was right. Maybe he was really worrying too much. Okay. Hagrid nodded. Now that Norbert's problem was solved, Hagrid was relieved, but in order to take care of Norbert these days, many things were delayed, and now he had to get busy. Thinking of this, Hagrid immediately looked at William. William, since you have a way to make me smaller, then you must have a way to make me normal again. William closed the suitcase and said, Hagrid, don't worry, you only took a small drop of shrinking potion, the effect of the medicine will not last long, and you will be able to change back soon. Hagrid still asked worriedly, how fast is soon? An hour or a day? It's not an hour, nor a day, but probably about 3 hours. Hagrid was not so anxious after knowing the exact time. About 3 hours, that's fine, I should be able to recover before dinner. William put the suitcase into his sleeves. This move of hiding the world in his sleeves has become his signature. Oh, Hagrid, I asked you to contact that Greek guy before, how come it's been so long and there's still no news? William suddenly remembered this and asked. William's sudden question made Hagrid stunned for a moment. He was still thinking about Norbert and when he would recover, so he didn't react at once. But soon, he understood what William was asking, so he said, that guy heard that you accept all kinds of magical creatures, and I told him that you can pay, so he went back to Greece. Going back to Greece? William asked in confusion. Hagrid nodded. Yes, he said he was going to catch a big one to trade with you, but he hasn't sent any news yet. Maybe. Hagrid didn't say the rest, but William still understood that it was probably because he was trying to catch the big guy but was killed by him instead. After all, those magical animals are not made of clay, so it is normal for them to be killed. But William still hoped that he would be okay. After all, he was alive. Most importantly, he was a channel for William to collect magical animals. It was better not to die. With the mentality of trying everything possible, William reminded Hagrid, don't rush to draw conclusions. If you have any news, notify me in time. All right. Hagrid nodded casually. That's it, I'll go back first, I'll bring Norbert to see you next Saturday. Hearing Norbert, Hagrid immediately became energetic. Okay, next Saturday, you must bring Norbert to see me. By the way, take good care of Norbert. Hagrid said as he pulled out the big book from under his pillow, opened double-angle bracket Raising Dragons for Pleasure and Profit, and thrust him into William's hands. If you don't understand something, just read this book. William did not refuse. After all, there were some things he really didn't know, so it would be good to learn. After saying goodbye to Hagrid, William did not go back to the dormitory directly, but went to the room of requirement. This place is very private, no one will disturb him. System, collection of Norwegian Ridgeback Norbert. Ding. Collect the extraordinary 7-star creature Norwegian Ridgeback Dragon. Reward 0.5 host magic +7. Money +6400 galleons. Talent, Dragon Breath. William grinned. The fire dragon, a top magical animal in the wizarding world, is only an extraordinary 7-star creature. But if you think about it carefully, it makes sense. After all, although the fire dragon is generally powerful, it is not so powerful that it is invincible. Compared with those Grandmaster wizards, the fire dragon is just so-so, and there is no threat at all. After such a long time of exploration, William has basically figured out the situation of the system issuing rewards. Extraordinary 8 or 9 stars correspond to the Grandmaster level. Extraordinary 6 or 7 stars correspond to the Master level. Extraordinary 4 or 5 stars correspond to the Advanced level. Extraordinary 2 or 3 stars correspond to the Intermediate level. Extraordinary 1 star corresponds to the Low level. Extraordinary 10 stars probably correspond to the Legendary level, but William has never come into contact with it, it is just a guess. But it is almost right, there should be no problem. William adopted Norbert, but raising a dragon is not an easy task. First of all, William had to solve the problem of Norbert's food. As it grows bigger, the food consumption will also increase. Fortunately, William's family is rich and can afford it. Then there is the safety issue. Of course, it is not the safety of Norbert, but the safety of other creatures in the suitcase. You know, Norbert is a Norwegian Ridgeback dragon, which is very aggressive. If he can't restrain it, William feels that everything in his suitcase will be destroyed by it. Although Norbert is still young, at its growth rate, it will take less than 2 or 3 months to have that ability. William thinks that by then, he may have to use some means. After solving Norbert's problem, Hermione and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although Hagrid did not tell them how he sent Norbert away, as long as Norbert was not with Hagrid, Harry and the others would not go into it. But Malfoy didn't know this news, and he still looked at William and the others with a malicious look. Ron complained about Malfoy in the dormitory. Malfoy, that big fool, does he think he can scare us? If he had complained earlier, maybe it would have had some effect. But now Hagrid has dealt with it, and he has no chance at all. Harry also agreed, yes, he must have wanted to see us frightened, so he didn't complain. Now it's too late. But I get angry when I see his look, humph. I'm going to beat him up sooner or later. Ron said angrily. William, who had been reading a book and hadn't said much, suddenly said, I have a good idea here, we can use this to teach Malfoy a lesson, do you want to listen? Of course I want to hear it, William, tell me now. Ron said impatiently. Harry's eyes lit up, and he obviously wanted to hear it very much. William closed the book, looked at Harry and said, Malfoy thought he had something on us, so let's take advantage of him. How do we turn the tables on him? Harry asked. William smiled slightly. Although he knows that Hagrid has a dragon, he doesn't know that Hagrid has sent Norbert away. We can use this as an opportunity to make a fuss. How to write an article. Ron was a little puzzled. Don't worry, Ron, keep listening, and you will know how to write an article. William chuckled. We've been pretending to be guilty for the past 2 days, so that Malfoy can still threaten us. Then, inadvertently, we gave him the false news that we were going to the astronomy tower to send Norbert away at 1 a.m. on Saturday. Once he gets to know the news, he will definitely go to the professor to complain. After all, if we really send Norbert away, he will lose the evidence he has. By then, we didn't even go to the astronomy tower to see Norbert off, but his accusation that Malfoy framed his classmates would be confirmed, and he would also be charged with playing tricks on the professor. After hearing William's plan, Harry and Ron were excited. Well, William, your plan is very good, let's do it this way, I wonder if Malfoy can escape this time. William, you are indeed smart. For the next 2 days, Harry and Ron followed William's plan and pretended to be worried. Although William did not show it so obviously, he did not look as calm and composed as usual. This made Malfoy very proud, and his eyes were always full of ill intentions and gloating when he looked at them. Time came to Friday, and it was Snape's potions class again in the morning. Harry was still troubled by Snape, but everyone was used to it. If Snape did not do this one day, everyone would find it strange. After class, William gave Harry and Ron a look, reminding them that it was time to act. The two secretly made an okay gesture to show that they had received it. William believed that the two of them could handle this simple task, so he took Hermione and left first. Harry and Ron deliberately adjusted their pace and walked in front of Malfoy. Then the two of them muttered in a loud voice that they would go to the astronomy tower to see Norbert off at 1 o'clock on Saturday morning. The content of the two people's conversation was heard by Malfoy without missing a word. A sinister smile immediately appeared on his face, and he probably started to wonder if Harry and the others would be expelled after being caught. Unfortunately, he didn't know that this was a trap, waiting for him, Malfoy, to jump into it. Harry and Ron smiled at the same time. It felt good to trick someone. What's more, this time the person tricked was their mortal enemy Malfoy, which made the feeling even better. Back in the Gryffindor common room, William, who was talking to Hermione, looked straight at them with a questioning look in his eyes. Harry, Lee and Ron nodded in tacit understanding. The job was done, and they just had to wait for Malfoy to take the bait. Time flew by, and it was dark in the blink of an eye. During dinner, William and the other two looked absent-minded. Of course, they were pretending, and they had to act out the whole act, and not give the finishing touch, so Malfoy saw through it. Malfoy even deliberately walked to the Gryffindor table and gave William and the others a meaningful fake smile. Ron pretended to be strong on the outside but weak on the inside, and loudly questioned Malfoy. Malfoy, what do you mean? Do you want to cause trouble? Humph. Malfoy sneered and turned away. He didn't care about someone who was going to be expelled. Ron Weasley, enjoy your last dinner at Hogwarts, ha 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 ha. Malfoy's inner joy could no longer be concealed. Of course, this was all his wishful thinking. After William and the others finished their dinner, they returned to the dormitory. They were not anxious at all as they had during dinner. Instead, they were very happy and expectant. At midnight, William and the others fell asleep. On the other side, Malfoy got up and left the dormitory. He came out of the Slytherin basement lounge and went straight to Professor Snape to complain. But he was caught by Professor McGonagall. She was wearing a plaid dressing gown and a hairnet, and she grabbed Malfoy's ear directly. Detention. She yelled, 20 points from Slytherin. How dare you wander around in the middle of the night? You don't understand, Professor, Harry Potter is coming, and he's bringing a dragon. Malfoy argued. This is complete nonsense. How dare you make up such a lie? Come on. I want to see how Professor Snape will deal with you, Malfoy. Malfoy was a little tearful. He didn't want to be caught like this, at least he had to expose Potter's affairs. Professor, I'm telling the truth. I overheard Potter and Weasley saying this morning that they were going to the astronomy tower in the early hours of the morning to send Norbert off. Norbert is the name of the dragon, and it was raised by Hagrid. If you don't believe me, we can go to the astronomy tower and see where Potter will go. Seeing Malfoy's assurance, Professor McGonagall hesitated. After all, if Hagrid had a dragon, it was possible that. Okay, let's go and take a look. If Potter doesn't come, Malfoy, you have lied to the professor and Slytherin will be deducted another 30 points. Professor, believe me, Potter will definitely go. Malfoy was put in detention, and Slytherin's house score was deducted by 50 points. Professor McGonagall did not find Harry, let alone any dragon. Malfoy was taken to Snape by Professor McGonagall, and was scolded by Snape in a sarcastic manner. He felt terrible. Potter and Weasley said that, and Hagrid did have a dragon. Unfortunately, Professor McGonagall did not believe it at all, and angrily accused him of talking nonsense and making up lies. Although Snape felt that Malfoy might not be lying, he had no evidence to prove it. The next day, when William and others passed by the huge hourglass recording the score of the House Cup, they saw that Slytherin had lost 50 points. Ha ha. It must be that annoying Malfoy, he's in trouble now. Ron laughed gloatingly. Harry also said with a smile, it seems that our plan worked, that guy was fooled. This is called being too clever by half. William smiled faintly, Malfoy will have a hard time next. Slytherin takes the House Cup very seriously. He caused Slytherin to lose 50 points in one go. Just thinking about it makes me feel miserable. As expected, Malfoy was not only put in detention, but also pointed at and insulted by other Slytherin students. Of course, the Gryffindors were even more upset. Whenever Malfoy passed by, they would always applaud, whistle, and cheer. "Thank you, Malfoy, you helped us a lot. Slytherin has won the House Cup for several consecutive years, and the other 3 houses don't want it to continue. The 50 points deducted this time can be said to have eliminated Slytherin's advantage in an instant." Malfoy was tricked and he certainly couldn't swallow this breath, but his current situation is worrying. Even if he wants to retaliate, he can't do anything for the time being. Of course, everything will be slowly forgotten with the passage of time. The exam time is getting closer and closer, and everyone began to bury their heads in reviewing, and other things are irrelevant. Hermione reviews until late at night every day, trying to remember those complicated potion formulas, remember those magic spells and incantations, remember the dates of major magic inventions and goblin rebellions. Although William had a photographic memory, he still accompanied her to review them again. Harry and Ron did not slack off either, and followed William and the others to review the knowledge together. If they had any questions, they could ask William and Hermione for help. However, some things came so unexpectedly. Just 1 week before the exam, that afternoon, Harry came out of the library alone. He suddenly heard someone sobbing in the classroom in front. He couldn't help but walk a few steps closer and recognized that it was Quirrell's voice. "No. No. I can't do this anymore, please, backquote." It sounded as if someone was threatening him. Harry took a few steps closer. All right. He heard Quirrell sobbing. Then Quirrell hurried out of the classroom, adjusting his scarf. He looked very pale, as if he was about to cry, and strode out of Harry's sight. Harry felt that Quirrell had not noticed him at all. He waited until the sound of Quirrell's footsteps could no longer be heard, then looked into the classroom. There was no one inside, but the door on the other side was ajar. Harry was willing to bet 12 Philosopher's Stones that it was Snape who had just left the classroom. From the sound of his footsteps, Snape's steps suddenly became brisk. It seemed that Quirrell had finally surrendered. Harry returned to the library, where Hermione was asking William some questions about spells, and Ron was confused. Harry told them what he had just heard. So, Snape finally succeeded. Ron frowned. If Quirrell told him how to remove his anti-dark magic spell. "Don't forget Fluffy," Hermione said. Maybe Snape already knows how to get past Fluffy, so there's no need to ask Hagrid. Ron said, looking up at the countless books around them. "I bet there's a book hidden here that tells you how to get past a 3-headed dog. So what should we do?" The desire for adventure flickered in Ron's eyes again. Before William and Harry could say anything, Hermione spoke first. "Go find Dumbledore. We should have done this a long time ago. If we act alone again, we will definitely be expelled from school." Hermione was still very rational and knew that it was time to find Dumbledore. "But we have no evidence," Harry said. "Quirrell is so scared that he will definitely not come out to testify for us." William added, "Also, don't forget, we are not supposed to know about the Philosopher's Stone and Fluffy, it would be too troublesome to explain." William certainly couldn't let Dumbledore get involved, not to mention that this might be a test that Dumbledore arranged for Harry. William could take this opportunity to get the Philosopher's Stone and the Mirror of Erised. By then, it would not be so easy for Dumbledore to go back. Otherwise, it would be difficult for William to get these 2 things. Hermione said hesitantly, "Okay, then don't go to Dumbledore first." It can be seen that William and Harry's reasons only barely convinced Hermione, but deep down she still wanted to tell Dumbledore. And Ron was not convinced at all. He said tentatively, "If we snoop around." "No, we have already heard enough." William refused. "Okay." Ron gave up. He pulled a Jupiter astronomical map in front of him and began to review the names of Jupiter's satellites. The next day was another Saturday. William took the suitcase to Hagrid's hut. He promised to let Hagrid see Norbert once a week. This was the 4th time. After a month, Norbert had grown a lot. He can now spit fire, but the range is still relatively small. Even so, it is already very intimidating. When William feeds Norbert now, he also puts on a magic shield. After arriving at Hagrid's hut, William found that he looked a little distressed. "Hagrid, what happened? You look like you are worried." William asked. A unicorn died in the Forbidden Forest, and I don't know what killed it. I'm worried that other unicorns will be harmed. Hagrid did not hide anything from William and told him the truth about his concerns. William knew that it was Quirrell, or Voldemort who did it. Anyway, he had to fight Voldemort in the end, and William planned to fight him in advance to test his weight. So he said to Hagrid, "Hagrid, how about I patrol the forest with you these days? If you encounter any problems, I can help you." "That won't work. Students are not allowed to enter the Forbidden Forest." Hagrid shook his head and refused William. "Hagrid, you know, with my strength, I can enter the Forbidden Forest without being discovered. I just want to help you." "That's right, all right then." Hagrid agreed. "Norbert, your mom is here to see you." Hagrid looked at Norbert lovingly, but unfortunately Norbert didn't give him any good response. Norbert directly spit out a mouthful of fire. If William hadn't cast an armor charm on Hagrid, he would have been burned. Even so, Hagrid was still not sad at all. He smiled and said, "William, look, Norbert can already spit fire, and it's only been hatched for more than a month. What a smart and strong little cutie." William rolled his eyes helplessly. "As long as you are happy." Hagrid doted on Norbert so much that no matter what Norbert did, he was cute in his eyes. "Hagrid, take care of your own safety. Norbert is not some cute little animal. It's a dragon, a very aggressive Norwegian ridgeback." Hagrid ignored William's reminder, and although he agreed with his mouth, his actions did not change at all. But Hagrid had been dealing with magical creatures for many years, so he still had some tricks. William did not have to worry about his safety. He took his wand and began to cast spells on the area around Norbert's cave. The reason he did this, of course, was to confine Norbert to a specific range to prevent him from running out and causing damage. After doing these things, William 593 asked Hagrid, "Hagrid, do you want to continue playing with Norbert for a while, or come with me to see other places?" "William, I'd like to continue playing with Norbert for a while. We only see each other once a week." "Well, then you play with Norbert, and I'll call you when I leave." "Okay, go ahead and do your work," Hagrid said, and went to play with Norbert again. William shook his head. Hagrid really regarded himself as Norbert's mother. He didn't say anything else, turned around and left Norbert's cave and came to the study. After reading for more than 2 hours in the study, William felt that the time was almost up, so he went to find Hagrid. "Let's go, I'll take it out." "Oh, all right." Hagrid looked at Norbert, somewhat reluctantly. "Norbert, Mom is leaving. I'll come back to play with you in a few days." Hagrid responded with Norbert's dragon breath. The oncoming flames made Hagrid feel depressed. "Okay, let's go." The two of them got out of the suitcase, and nothing happened in Hagrid's cabin. "Hagrid, from tonight on, I will accompany you to patrol the Forbidden Forest, remember to wait for me," William said to Hagrid while skillfully putting away the suitcase. "Okay, then come over at 10 o'clock in the evening, I'll be waiting for you here." Hagrid nodded in agreement. "Okay, I'll be leaving now." William and Hagrid said goodbye and left, heading towards the castle. After dinner, William accompanied Hermione to review until about 9:40, then he said, "Hermione, you review by yourself first. I have something to do. Don't review too late. Go to bed early." Hearing this, Hermione immediately looked up at William and said, "William, what are you doing so late?" Hagrid said that a unicorn died in the Forbidden Forest recently, and he suspected that some strange monster had come to the Forbidden Forest. "I'm going to help him." William did not hide anything and told Hermione what he was going to do. He believed that Hermione would not stop him, and the facts proved that he was right. Hermione nodded. "Is that so? Then you must be careful and don't let yourself get hurt." "Okay, I got it. You should review now." After William comforted Hermione, he left the Gryffindor common room and cast an invisibility spell on himself to avoid trouble. He arrived at Hagrid's hut without any trouble. He was ready, holding a crossbow in one hand and a lamp in the other. The Black Hound Fang was also beside Hagrid, waiting for William. When William arrived, Hagrid took him to patrol the Forbidden Forest without saying a word. "Since the last unicorn died, that guy is on the move again today. Look over there." Hagrid pointed to a narrow path that gradually disappeared into the depths of the dark forest. "See that shiny thing on the ground? Silver. That's the unicorn's blood. Another unicorn in the Forbidden Forest was injured by him and was seriously injured. We must try to find the poor unicorn and put it out of its pain. Let's follow the bloodstains on the ground. This is the most practical way. Hopefully, we'll be there in time. They walked silently, their eyes fixed on the ground. From time to time, a ray of moonlight would shine through the branches above, illuminating a silver-blue bloodstain on the fallen leaves. Suddenly, in the open space ahead, they clearly saw something moving. Who's there? Hagrid shouted, "Come out. I'm armed." Although William had a wand in his hand, he didn't make a move, but was more alert. Because he had a gift for night vision, he could see the thing clearly. But was it a man or a horse? Above the waist he was a man with red hair and beard, but below the waist he was a shiny brown-red horse with a long red tail. With William's knowledge, he had already recognized what the creature was in front of him. He should be a centaur. When the centaur heard Hagrid's voice, he responded and walked to the open space in front. "Oh, it's you, Ronan." Hagrid breathed a sigh of relief and said, "How are you?" He walked up and shook hands with the centaur. It seemed that they were acquaintances. "Good evening, Hagrid," Ronan said, his voice low and sad. "You want to shoot me with a bow and arrow. We have to be on our guard, Ronan," said Hagrid, patting his quiver. "There's a bad fellow on the move in this forest." "Oh, yes, this is William Cavendish, a student at the school above. This is Ronan, a centaur." Hagrid introduced William and Ronan to each other. "Good evening, Ronan, nice to meet you." William greeted politely with a smile. "Good evening, William." Ronan also said, "Are you a student? Have you learned much in school?" "I learned a lot," William said with a smile. "Quite a lot. Good, that's good." Ronan sighed. He looked up and stared at the sky. "Mars is very bright tonight." "Yeah," Hagrid said, looking up at the sky. "Listen, Ronan, I'm glad we met you, because there's a unicorn that's been injured. Did you see anything?" Ronan didn't answer immediately. He stared upwards without blinking, and then sighed again. "It is always the innocent who suffer first," he said. "It has been like this for hundreds of years and it is still like this now." "Yes," said Hagrid, "but did you see anything, Ronan? Anything unusual?" "Mars is bright tonight," Ronan repeated, and Hagrid looked at him impatiently. "It's very bright," Ronan said. "Yes, but what I mean is there anything unusual happening near our home?" Hagrid said, "Didn't you notice any strange noises?" Ronan still didn't answer. Finally, he said, "The forest hides many secrets." There was a sudden movement in the bushes behind Ronan, and Hagrid raised his crossbow again. It turned out to be a second centaur, with black hair and a black body, who looked a little rougher than Ronan. "Hello, Bane," Hagrid greeted. "How are you?" "Good evening, Hagrid, I hope you are well." "It's not bad. You see, I was just asking Ronan that question," Hagrid said with a smile. "Have you seen anything weird here lately? A unicorn got hurt. Do you know anything about this?" Bane came over and stood beside Ronan, also looking up at the sky. "Mars is bright tonight. That's all he said." "Oh, another riddler. What's wrong with these centaurs? They're all like this." William just complained in his mind. Hagrid was much more irritable. "We've heard this before. Well, if any of you see anything, tell me right away, okay? Let's go." William followed him out of the open space. "I kept turning my head to look at Ronan and Bane. I wonder what the reward is for collecting a centaur." "Alas, you never get straight answers from the centaurs," said Hagrid angrily. "They're always looking up at the stars. It's annoying. They don't take an interest in anything except what's around the moon." "Are there many centaurs here?" William asked. Hagrid replied casually, "Oh, there are a few. Most of them stayed with their own kind, but they were kind and always showed up when I wanted to talk to them. These centaurs are mysterious, they know a lot of things, but they always keep their mouths shut." They continued to walk through the dense, dark woods. William and Hagrid followed the blood trail all the way to the center of the Forbidden Forest. They walked for nearly half an hour, getting deeper and deeper into the forest. Later, the trees became extremely dense and the path was almost impassable. William found that the bloodstains on the ground were getting denser and denser. There was a lot of blood splattered on the roots of a tree, as if the poor unicorn had been twisting and struggling in pain nearby. William could see an open space in front through the tangled branches of an ancient oak tree. A white object was shining on the ground. They hurried forward to check. Yes, it was a unicorn. It was seriously injured. Although it had fallen to the ground and was unable to struggle, when it saw William and Hagrid approaching, its eyes were full of hostility and vigilance. "Don't be afraid, we are here to save you," William said soothingly while preparing to cast a spell to heal it. But just as William raised his wand, a rustling sound stopped him. A bush at the edge of the clearing was shaking. Then, a hooded figure flashed out from the shadows, crawling slowly on the ground, like an approaching beast. Hagrid raised his crossbow again and shouted, "Stop, I won't be polite if you move again." But the figure remained unmoved and continued to crawl towards the unicorn on the ground. Hagrid didn't care about anything this time and shot him directly with a crossbow. Unexpectedly, the crossbow did not hurt him, but was bounced off by the magic protection on the guy. Seeing this, William hurriedly said, "Hagrid, take care of the unicorn, I'll deal with him." As soon as the voice fell, William waved the wand in his hand, and a sharp blade shot out. This is Snape's proud magic, and with William's magic value of more than 100 points today, its power should not be underestimated. Sure enough, William's sharp blade instantly shattered his magic defense and even injured him. Seeing that William was so powerful, the figure on the ground left a few drops of blood, quickly got into the jungle, and escaped. Voldemort is in a very bad state now, and he needs to rely on the blood of unicorns to survive. In addition, he still has to plan the Philosopher's Stone, which will definitely take some effort. He can't waste his strength on unimportant places. Facing William, a strong enemy, he will definitely waste a lot of strength, which is very unfavorable for his subsequent plans. Therefore, Voldemort chose to escape decisively. As long as he gets the Philosopher's Stone and restores his strength, it won't be too late to settle accounts with William afterwards. "William, do you have any ideas? Please save this poor unicorn." Hagrid saw William beat the guy back and asked immediately. "Hagrid, I may not be able to save it, but I will try my best to save it. Then I'll trouble you." William said nothing more, but waved his wand solemnly, casting one spell after another on the unicorn. The wounds on its body were all caused by black magic, and the wounds were difficult to heal. William had to disperse the power of black magic first before the wounds could heal. After William healed a wound for the unicorn, its eyes softened when it looked at William, and it was no longer so vigilant and hostile. It took William a long while to heal all the wounds on its body. Despite this, it was still too weak to stand up. It can only be said that the unicorn is out of danger, but if left alone, it will still die. Seeing William stop, Hagrid asked hurriedly, "How is it?" William nodded. "I have dealt with all the wounds, and I will need to feed some potions for treatment later, otherwise this unicorn will not live long. I plan to take it back for treatment, otherwise everything I do now will be in vain." Hagrid agreed after hearing this. "Indeed, do you need my help?" "No need, I can handle it." After William finished speaking, he looked at the unicorn lying on the ground and asked in a gentle voice, "Will you come with me? I will try my best to heal you." The unicorn, who had recovered some strength at this moment, looked at the lifesaver in front of him and nodded with difficulty. Seeing this scene, William smiled happily and said, "Since you agreed, I will definitely take good care of you and make sure you will be alive and well in the future." Hagrid looked at this scene and was deeply moved. William is such a kind and good man, and he loves magical animals just like him. "I will let you out when the time comes." William touched the unicorn's head, then stood up and put it into his sleeve. "Hagrid, let's go back. I injured that guy. He won't appear again in the short term." "Okay, let's go then. William, you should go back and rest as well. It's already 12 o'clock. The two walked out of the forbidden forest along the path, without stopping this time. When they returned to Hagrid's hut, William did not go in to bother them again. Instead, he waved and said goodbye and returned to the castle. When William returned to the Gryffindor common room, Hermione still did not go to rest. She was still reviewing there, but she looked a little absent-minded. But when she saw William coming back, Hermione immediately became energetic. She said with concern, "William, you are finally back. Did you encounter any danger?" "Of course not, Hermione, you are studying too hard. It's already past 12 o'clock, why are you still reviewing? I'm worried about you. I can't sleep unless I see you come back safely," Hermione said softly. William was a little moved, and rubbed her fluffy hair with a smile. Now I'm back, go to bed quickly. Okay, William, you should go to bed early too. Good night. Hermione stood on tiptoe and kissed William, then turned around and ran into the girls' dormitory with a book in her arms. William was slightly stunned, then smiled and returned to the dormitory in a good mood. William took out a bottle of golden potion from the suitcase and fed it to the unicorn. This was the healing potion that the system had rewarded him with before, but William had never used it. After all, he had never been injured. Now it was just the right time to use it on the unicorn, so it could be considered as making the best use of it, instead of just throwing it in the corner and gathering dust. After settling the unicorn, William finally had time to sit down and rest for a while. System: collect unicorns. Ding. Collecting the extraordinary 6-star creature unicorn will reward the host with magic +6, money +3,200 galleons, and talent, speed like the wind. William now understands that after collecting these magical animals, he will be rewarded with a talent of the animal. Although the unicorn is full of treasures, such as its horn can detoxify, its blood can prolong life, etc., but its talent is still reflected in its speed. This is why this 593 unicorn can escape so far, with blood flowing everywhere. It all depends on its own fast speed, otherwise it would have been killed by Quirrell long ago. After obtaining this talent, William's already fast speed is now even faster. It can be said that with William's current speed, even if he runs past others, he can only see a fleeting black shadow. The next day, when they were sitting together to review again, William told Harry and the others about the incident of someone attacking a unicorn last night. These things have nothing to do with us. The most important thing for us now is the final exam. Ron said disapprovingly. Harry also nodded in agreement with Ron. He was really busy reviewing his lessons and had no time to care about other things. Do you know what unicorn blood is good for? I don't know. Harry and the others were puzzled by this strange question. Harry was reviewing his knowledge of potions at that time, so he said casually, we only used its horns and tail hair in the potions class. Then I will tell you, this is because killing a unicorn is an extremely cruel thing. William said, only those who have nothing and want everything will commit such a heinous crime. Unicorn blood can prolong a person's life, even if he is already dying, but he must pay a heavy price for it. If someone kills a pure, weak and helpless life in order to save his own life, then from the moment the unicorn's blood touched his lips, he would have a half-dead life, a cursed life. After hearing William's explanation, they became even more confused. So, what does this have to do with you? William slapped his forehead and said helplessly, that guy last night went for the unicorn's blood. Seeing that no one was interested in the comparison, Hermione could only support it herself, because William was her dear boyfriend. She expressed her doubts, but why did he do this? If you are cursed for the rest of your life, you might as well die, right? Yes, William agreed, unless he is just using unicorn blood to prolong his life. And his real purpose is that he can drink something else, something that can completely restore his energy and magic power, something that makes him immortal. As soon as William finished speaking, Harry, who had been indifferent, immediately exclaimed, Elixir of Life. Philosopher's Stone. His ultimate goal is the Philosopher's Stone. Ron also spoke at this time, do you mean that person is Snape? But Snape doesn't seem to need to find unicorn blood to prolong his life. William shook his head and said seriously, can't you think of someone who has been waiting silently for so many years, eager to make a comeback? Who is holding on to life and waiting for the opportunity? Ron and Hermione were a little confused, but Harry thought of that person, the mysterious man. For a moment, it was as if an iron claw suddenly grabbed Harry's heart. In the silence, he seemed to hear again what Hagrid said on the night they first met. Some people say he is dead, but I think that is pure nonsense. I am afraid he has not much humanity left, so he cannot die. Are you saying, said Harry in a low, hoarse voice, that it's Voldemort? Harry. What are you talking about? And don't mention that name. Ron looked horrified, as if he was worried that Voldemort would hear it. That's right. William nodded in affirmation. Harry said hesitantly, is Snape going to get the Philosopher's Stone for Voldemort, and Voldemort is waiting in the Forbidden Forest? Can you please stop saying that name? Ron said in a low voice. William shook his head. I don't know whether Snape is helping Voldemort, but I think Voldemort is definitely coveting the Philosopher's Stone. Snape is definitely helping Voldemort. We thought Snape just wanted to get rich from the Philosopher's Stone. William and Harry discussed Voldemort openly. Ron had covered his ears. He could not persuade Harry and could only cover his ears. Hermione also looked a little scared, but she did not cover her ears like Ron. Maybe children who live in wizard families have heard horror stories about the mysterious man since childhood, and the fear is deep in their hearts. William and other people who live in the Muggle world don't know much about Voldemort, so they don't have such deep feelings and fear. What should we do now? Why don't we go find Dumbledore and tell him everything? Everyone says that the only person that you know who is afraid of is Dumbledore. With Dumbledore here, he will definitely be able to solve all the problems. Although Hermione was very scared, she still suggested. William shook his head and said helplessly, Hermione, I'm afraid that won't work, because all of this is my guess, and there is no evidence at all. What should we do? Should we wait for the mysterious man to get the Philosopher's Stone and then come back with a comeback? Faced with Hermione's questioning, William smiled and said, Don't worry, there are tall people to hold up the sky even if it falls. I will also stop him from getting the Philosopher's Stone. That's the mysterious man, how can you stop him, and it's too dangerous to do that. Hermione said anxiously, fearing that William would really do that. Hermione, Voldemort's strength is not as good as before, otherwise he wouldn't be so sneaky, I still have the confidence to stop him. William smiled slightly, his face full of confidence. No, I don't want you to get hurt. Well, let's wait and see what happens, and hope Dumbledore is prepared. There was less than a week left before the exam, and they were focusing on reviewing, so this matter was put on hold. Time passed day by day, and finally it was time for the exam. The weather was very hot and muggy, and the large classroom where they took the exam was even hotter. The teacher gave them new quills for the exam, all of which were spelled to prevent cheating. There were also practical tests. Professor Flitwick asked them to go into the classroom one by one to see if they could make a pineapple tap dance across a desk. Professor McGonagall watched them turn a mouse into a snuff box. The more beautiful the box, the higher the score. If the mouse whiskers were left on the box, they would lose points. In the potion exam, they had to mix the forgetfulness potion. And Snape stood behind them and watched closely. They could feel his breath on the back of their necks, which made them very nervous. Whether it was the written test or the practical test, William performed with ease and looked relaxed. The last test was History of Magic. As long as they could hold on for another hour and answer which weird old wizards invented the automatic stirring crucible, they would be free and could have fun for a whole week until the exam results were announced. When the ghost of Professor Binns told them to put down their quills and roll up their parchments, all the students cheered. "Oh 6, it's much easier than I thought," Hermione said as they followed the crowd out into the sunny field. "I don't actually need to remember the Werewolf Code of Conduct from 1637, or the Elf Rebellion." Hermione always liked to review the exam content after the exam. Maybe this is why the top students check their answers after the exam. William, however, did not have this habit, because he felt it was unnecessary and he could do all the questions. But when Hermione asked, he would still simply and clearly state his thoughts. But this was very unfriendly to Ron, because he was very annoyed by this question. So they slowly went down the slope, came to the edge of the Black Lake, and plopped down under a tree. Over there, a big squid was lying in the warm shallow water basking in the sun, and the Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were gently fiddling with its tentacles. How wonderful. I don't have to review anymore. Ron exhaled happily and stretched out his limbs and lay on the grass. William also lay on the grass, but his head rested on Hermione's legs, and he was very lazy. Hermione leaned against the tree and ruffled William's hair with a relaxed look. Only Harry looked distressed. He rubbed his forehead. "I really want to know what this means," he suddenly said angrily. "My scar has been hurting. It has hurt before, but never as often as it does now. Let's go see Madame Pomfrey," Hermione suggested. "I'm not sick," Harry said. "I think it's a warning, that danger is coming." William had to admit that Harry's scar really had this function. After all, when it came to Voldemort, there was no danger. Ron couldn't muster up the energy. The weather was too hot. "Harry, relax a little. As long as Dumbledore is here, the Philosopher's Stone is safe. In any case, we have not found any evidence to prove that Snape has found out the way to get through Lu Wei. He almost had his leg bitten off by Lou Williams last time, so he won't rush to take the risk again. If even Hagrid betrayed Dumbledore, then Neville could be selected for the England Quidditch team. William heard this and said casually, although Hagrid will not betray Dumbledore, can his mouth really keep any secrets? I doubt it. After all, if we can get information from him, then others can get information too, right? Harry jumped up when he heard this. Where are you going? Ron asked sleepily. William is right. I have a question in mind. Harry's face turned pale. We must go find Hagrid immediately. What's the doubt? William stood up and pulled Hermione up. Hermione asked while brushing the grass debris off her clothes. Don't you think it's a little strange? Harry said as he hurried down the grass slope. What Hagrid wanted most was a dragon, and a stranger just happened to have a dragon egg in his pocket. How many people walk around with dragon eggs all day? It's against wizarding law. Don't you think they were lucky to find Hagrid? Why didn't I think of that before? What do you want to do? Ron asked. But Harry didn't answer him as he ran across the grounds towards the Forbidden Forest. William smiled and followed Hermione. Hagrid was sitting on a chair outside the hut, his trouser legs rolled up, shelling peas in a large bowl. Hello, he said with a smile, is the exam over? Do you have time for a cup of tea? Okay, thanks, said Ron, but Harry interrupted him. No, we're in a hurry. Hagrid, I have something to ask you. Do you remember the night you won Norbert at cards? What did the stranger you played with look like? I don't know, Hagrid said casually, he won't take off his cloak. He saw the surprised expressions on Harry's and the others' faces, and he raised his eyebrows in surprise. What's so strange about this? The Hog's Head pub, the pub in the village, is always frequented by some weird guys. That fellow might be a dragon bender. I never saw his face clearly, he had a hood on. Single quote. Harry plopped down beside the bowl of peas. What did you say to him, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts? Maybe it was mentioned. Hagrid frowned and tried to recall. Oh, by the way. He asked me what I did, and I told him I was a gamekeeper here. 593 inches. He asked me a little more about what animals I was looking after, and I told him. Then I said I had always wanted a dragon, and then. I don't remember clearly, he kept buying me wine to drink. Let me think about it. Oh, then he said he had a dragon egg, and if I wanted it, we could play cards and bet on it. But he had to find out if I had the ability to deal with this fire dragon. He didn't want the dragon to run out and cause trouble. So I told him, I can even control Lu Wei, a fire dragon is nothing. Does he seem interested in Fluffy? Harry asked, trying to keep his tone calm. Yeah, that's interesting, how many three-headed dogs can you come across, even near Hogwarts? So I told him that Lu Wei is actually very easy to deal with. You just need to know how to calm him down and play some music for him, and he will fall asleep immediately. Hagrid's face suddenly showed a look of horror. I shouldn't have told you this. He blurted out, forget what I said. Hey, where are you going? Hagrid really grew up drinking truth serum, and he could get anything out of him. William and the other three didn't exchange a word along the way, and they ran into the hallway before stopping. Just after coming in from the outside field, the hallway seemed particularly cold and dark. We must go find Dumbledore, said Harry. Hagrid told a stranger the method through Fluffy, and the person wearing the cloak was either Snape or Voldemort. He only had to get Hagrid drunk, and it would be easy to get him to talk. I just hope Dumbledore believes us. Where is Dumbledore's office? They looked around, as if expecting to see a sign pointing them in the direction. No one had ever told them where Dumbledore lived, and they didn't know if anyone had ever been taken to see the headmaster. William knew that Dumbledore's office was on the 8th floor of the castle, but he didn't have the password. Follow me. Before William finished speaking, a voice suddenly sounded from the other end of the hallway. What are you guys doing in the room? It was Professor McGonagall. She was holding a pile of books in her arms. Professor McGonagall, we want to see Professor Dumbledore. William said politely. Harry and Ron thought he was very brave. Want to see Professor Dumbledore? Professor McGonagall repeated, as if it was very suspicious that they had such an idea. Why? Harry swallowed, how to say it. William was very calm. He replied very calmly, Professor McGonagall, we have some suggestions for Professor Dumbledore. What suggestions? Professor McGonagall asked subconsciously, and then said, I'm sorry to tell you a bad news. Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago. He received an urgent letter from the Ministry of Magic sent by Owl and flew to London immediately. Hearing the news, Harry said anxiously without waiting for William to speak, he left. At this time, Professor Dumbledore is a very remarkable wizard, busy with many things, and his time is precious. But this is very important. What are you talking about that's more important than the Ministry of Magic, Harry? Said Professor McGonagall disapprovingly. Look, said Harry, throwing caution to the wind, Professor, it's about the Philosopher's Stone. Backquote. Professor McGonagall had never expected this to happen. The book in her arms fell to the floor with a crash, and she did not pick it up. How do you know? She stammered. Professor, I think. I know. Snipes, someone tried to steal the Philosopher's Stone. I must talk to Professor Dumbledore. Harry stuttered. William was a little helpless. How could this kid be so impatient? Professor McGonagall looked at him with a mixture of astonishment and suspicion. Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow. She finally said. I don't know how you found out about the Philosopher's Stone, but don't worry, no one can steal it. It is well protected and safe. But Professor Potter, I know what I'm talking about. Professor McGonagall said impatiently, then bent down and picked up the book that had fallen to the ground. I suggest you go outside and get some sunshine. But they didn't do that. Tonight, Harry said quickly, when he was sure Professor McGonagall was out of earshot, Snape will go through the trapdoor tonight. William's ears moved, he heard footsteps. Harry, stop talking for now. William interrupted Harry and patted him on the shoulder. Harry asked in confusion, William, what's wrong? As soon as he finished speaking, Snape appeared. He walked over and said in a smooth tone, Good afternoon. Harry and the others looked at him blankly, wondering if Snape heard anything. Only William remained calm and greeted with a polite smile, Professor, good afternoon. You shouldn't stay indoors on such a sunny day. Snape said, his face twisted into a weird smile. Harry wanted to explain, but he didn't know what to say. You need to be careful, Snape said, if you wander around like this, people will think you are up to something bad, right? Harry blushed, maybe he was guilty. Thank you for the reminder, Professor. But we were just wandering around out of boredom. How could we possibly do anything bad? William chuckled, and then he took Hermione and turned to walk out. But Snape stopped them again. Just a reminder, Potter, if you dare to wander around in the middle of the night, I will personally expel you. Have a nice day. Then he strode towards the staff room. As William and the others reached the stone steps outside, Harry began to speak again. Snape will definitely go through the trapdoor tonight. What he said just now was a threat to us, so that we don't ruin his business tonight. He now had everything he needed and had tricked Dumbledore out of the school. He must have sent the letter. I bet the Ministry of Magic will be surprised to see Dumbledore suddenly appear. But what should we do? Professor Dumbledore is not here, and Professor McGonagall doesn't believe us. Hermione said in distress. I think we have to do this now. At the critical moment, William said, let's split into two groups. Hermione and I will stay to monitor Snape, and Harry, you and Ron will go to the corridor on the 4th floor and wait for the rabbit. Is that okay? No problem. Hermione and the other two had no objection to William's arrangement. Okay, then you guys go to the 4th floor and keep watch. Hermione and I will monitor Snape. Once Snape starts to move, we will follow him. Harry and Ron nodded, turned around and left. But this part of the plan did not work. As soon as Harry and the others arrived at the door that separated Fluffy from the rest of the school, Professor McGonagall suddenly appeared. This time she couldn't help but lose her temper. I suppose you think you're more powerful than a bunch of magic spells. She growled. That's enough, stop messing around. If I hear that you guys come here again next time, I'll deduct 50 points from Gryffindor. Yes, Weasley, deduct 50 points from my own house. Harry and Ron returned to the common room in dejection. Harry had just said, at least William and Hermione are still keeping an eye on Snape, when he saw the fat lady's portrait suddenly turn away, and William and Hermione came in. Weren't you guys monitoring Snape? Why are you back? Ron asked. William shook his head. We failed. Snape was too alert. He discovered us and we had to leave. Why are you back? William actually failed on purpose. After all, it was Quirrell who wanted to steal the Philosopher's Stone. What's the point of monitoring Snape? Ron shrugged and said helplessly, we were caught by Professor McGonagall. She was very angry and drove us away. Well, it seems that this is the only way, right? Although Harry said this, his face was pale and his eyes were shining. I will sneak out of here tonight and try to get the Philosopher's Stone first. I will sneak out of here tonight and try to get the Philosopher's Stone first. Harry's eyes lit up. You're crazy. Ron said. You can't do this. Hermione said. Didn't you hear what McGonagall and Snape said? You will be expelled. William didn't try to persuade her, he was waiting for Harry to say this. So what? Harry cried. Don't you understand? If Snape gets the Philosopher's Stone, Voldemort will come back. Haven't you heard what the situation was like here when he wanted to dominate the world? If he succeeds, Hogwarts will no longer exist, and it won't matter whether he is expelled or not. He would raze the school to the ground, or turn it into a school dedicated to teaching the dark arts. Can't you see that it doesn't matter whether we lose points or not? Do you think that as long as Gryffindor wins the House Cup, he will leave you and your family alone? If I was caught before I could get the Philosopher's Stone, I would have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. That would just mean dying a little later than now, because I will never join the forces of darkness. I must go through that trapdoor tonight, and nothing you say can stop me. Voldemort killed my parents, remember? Harry said this indignantly and glared at them angrily. William clapped his hands and shouted, Harry, you are right, let's go together tonight, and we must not let the Philosopher's Stone fall into Voldemort's hands. You are right, Harry, I am going tonight too. Hermione also spoke up. Of course I can't be left out of this matter. Ron said. Harry looked at William and the other two, and was very moved, but he said, but if we are caught, you will also be expelled. Compared to saving Hogwarts, expulsion is a small matter. William smiled. Hermione also said firmly, that's right, and you may not be expelled. Flitwick told me in secret that I scored 112 points in his exam. With such a high score, they were reluctant to kick me out. Ron smacked his lips. That was a very impolite thing to say. He didn't have such good grades, so he had no way out. Harry took his invisibility cloak back from William. He hadn't used it since the Christmas holidays. This time, for the sake of the Philosopher's Stone and Hogwarts, he had to put on the invisibility cloak again. After dinner, they avoided others and sat in the common room. No one paid attention to them, which made them relax a lot. After all, what they had to do in the evening was too big, and they were still a little nervous. Hermione was busy flipping through all her notes, hoping to happen to see a spell that they were going to remove later. Harry and Ron seldom spoke, and they were thinking about what they were about to do. William's face was still as calm as usual, but he had already begun to calculate in his mind how to get the Philosopher's Stone and the Mirror of Erised. The classmates went to bed one by one, and the number of people in the common room gradually decreased. You can get the invisibility cloak now, said Ron. At this time, Lee Jordan finally left, stretching and yawning. Harry ran upstairs, rushed into their dark dormitory, and took out the invisibility cloak. At this moment, he accidentally saw the flute that Hagrid gave him at Christmas. He put the flute in his pocket, ready to use it to deal with Fluffy. He didn't think he was in the mood to sing to the big dog. He hurried back to the common room. We'd better put on the invisibility cloak right here and see if it hides us all. If Filch sees a pair of feet walking on the ground by themselves. Harry, an invisibility cloak certainly can't cover all of us. You and Ron just need to wear them. Hermione and I have other ways. William smiled. Harry asked curiously, what ways? Disillusionment spell. A magic spell that can make a person invisible. It may not be as effective as your invisibility cloak, but it's pretty close. Hearing William say this, Harry suddenly remembered that Dumbledore had used a similar magic in the Mirror of Erised classroom. So he nodded. Okay, but if that's the case, then we won't be able to see each other, so how can we act together? Don't worry, let's meet in front of the house where Lu Wei is locked up, and I will remove the magic then. Well, let's go. Harry and Ron put on their invisibility cloaks and got out of the portrait hole first. William took Hermione's hand, cast a disillusionment charm on them, and also got out of the hole. They didn't run into anyone along the way and successfully reached the staircase leading to the 4th floor. Peeves was hopping upstairs, pulling the carpet on the stairs loose, trying to make others fall. "Who is that?" Peeves said, narrowing his mischievous black eyes as they walked up the stairs toward him. "I know you're there, even though I can't see you. Are you a ghoul, a ghost, or a school kid?" He rose to midair and paused, squinting his eyes as he looked in their direction. "There is an invisible thing sneaking around here. I should report to Filch." William didn't want to expose himself. He suddenly had an idea. "Peeves," he said softly, imitating the voice of the Bloody Baron. "The Bloody Baron doesn't want to be seen, and of course he has his reasons." William had a talent called onomatopoeia, which allowed him to imitate the sounds he had heard, and at this time it was enough to make the fake look real. Peeves was shocked when he heard this and almost fell from the air. He steadied himself in time and hovered a foot above the stairs. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bloody, Mr. Barrow, my lord," he said sweetly. "It's all my fault, it's all my fault. I didn't see you. Of course I didn't see you, you were invisible. Please forgive Peeves for this little joke, sir. I have something to do here, Peeves," William growled, "and don't come here again tonight." "Yes, sir, I will obey you," Peeves said, rising into the air again. "I hope you can do it well, Lord Barrow, I will not disturb you anymore." After he said that, he ran away quickly. "William is amazing," Hermione whispered. A few seconds later, he was outside the corridor on the 4th floor. The door had already opened a crack. William lifted the disillusionment charm on himself and Hermione. The next moment, not far away, Harry and Ron also took off their invisibility cloaks, revealing their bodies. "Well, see," Harry whispered, "Snape has successfully passed Fluffy." Seeing the half-open door, they seemed to be more aware of what they were about to face. "Have you thought about it carefully? Is it too late to leave now? Stop talking stupid stuff. Let's go together." William didn't say anything and pushed the door open. As the door creaked open, they immediately heard a low barking sound. William took the lead and walked in, and Fluffy's voice stopped abruptly. Its 3 big heads whimpered, and a strong sense of fear appeared on their faces. This scene made Hermione and the other 2 who came in later very puzzled. "William, why does it seem a little afraid of you?" Hermione vaguely sensed that Lu Wei was afraid of William. "Oh, maybe it was beaten by me last time, so it is a little afraid of me." William smiled and said calmly. Hearing this, Hermione opened her mouth in astonishment. "William, you actually beat it, when? That was last year. We had only been in school for a week. I didn't expect it to still remember me after so long." William explained, and reminded Harry and Ron of what happened at that time. They ran away first, but later found that William didn't catch up, so they turned back. But at that time they were only concerned with pulling William and running, and didn't pay attention to other situations. Unexpectedly, William beat up Fluffy. They were scared to death at the time and didn't have the courage to face Fluffy. William was a real Gryffindor. He was so brave. Harry and the other 2 admired him very much. "What's that at its feet?" Hermione suddenly asked. "It looks like a harp," said Ron. "It must have been left by Snape. Apparently, it will wake up as soon as the music stops," Harry said, shaking the flute in his hand. "With William here, it seems that we don't need this thing." William shook his head. "That's not necessarily the case. Even if Lu Wei is a little afraid of me, if we want to open the trap door, it won't do it. I think it's safer to let it sleep." William waved his wand and the harp on the ground began to play by itself, with beautiful and melodious music. As soon as the music started, the big dog's eyes began to droop. Slowly, it swayed a few times, and then it knelt down with weak knees, and then fell to the ground and fell asleep. "Okay, let's go." William walked straight towards the trapdoor behind Lu Wei, and Harry and the others followed carefully behind William. They stepped over the big dog's legs and came to the trapdoor. William bent down and pulled the pull ring on the trapdoor, and the door suddenly opened. "Can you see what's inside?" Hermione asked curiously. "There is a devil's net inside, which should be set by Professor Sprout," William said. It was actually pitch black inside. If William didn't have the gift of night vision, he wouldn't be able to see anything at all. Devil's Snare. What is that? Harry asked. William explained. Devil's Snare is a vine plant that likes a dark and humid living environment. A mature devil's snare can extend its snake-like tendrils to wrap around anyone who approaches it, causing injury or death. Hearing this, Harry and Ron swallowed their saliva and asked in a hoarse voice, "It's so dangerous, William, is there any way to deal with it?" William nodded. Of course, it's actually very simple to deal with the devil's snare, just a fire will do. Fortunately, there is a way. Okay, I'll jump down first to explore the way, and you guys can follow me when it's all right. William said, and he jumped down, directly into the darkness behind the trapdoor. The cold, damp air whizzed past his ears. He fell down, fell, and then, plop. With a strange and dull crash, William landed on the devil's snare. William felt that it was quite soft, and it played a buffering role. It's okay, it's soft, you guys come down. William moved aside to make room, then shouted at the hole, which now looked like a patch of light the size of a stamp. Hermione jumped down and landed next to William. William pulled Hermione to his side, and then Harry and Ron also jumped down and landed next to him. To be honest, it's a good thing that there are these devil's nets here, otherwise I would definitely get hurt if I jumped down from such a high place. Ron said while touching the devil's net under him. Don't be so lucky, didn't I tell you that the devil's snare can hurt people, look at your legs. William pulled out his wand, and the devil's snare stretched out its snake-like tendrils, wrapping around Harry and the others' ankles. As for William and Hermione, their legs were already entangled by the long vines. They were not too panicked. After all, William already knew the weakness of this thing. As he waved his wand, a beam of fire illuminated the surrounding environment, and in just a few seconds, the vines retreated to avoid the light and warmth, loosening their entanglement with them. The vines twisted and twitched, automatically loosening the tendrils wrapped around their legs, and several people broke free. William, you are so knowledgeable. Every time I feel like you are an old wizard who comes to school in disguise. It seems that there is no knowledge you don't know. Ron sighed. Harry couldn't help but nodded. Indeed, we are the same age and have always lived in the Muggle world, but compared with you, William, I feel like a fool. Okay, I'm just a little bit more diligent, this way. William pointed to a stone corridor. This was the only way to go. They heard, in addition to their own footsteps, the sound of water dripping slowly along the wall. The corridor went downhill, which reminded Harry of Gringotts. His heart skipped a beat, and he remembered the legendary dragons guarding the vaults of Wizard Banks. If they encountered a dragon, a fully grown dragon noble would be difficult enough to deal with. Can you hear anything? Ron asked in a low voice. There seemed to be a slight rustling and tinkling sound coming from the front. Could it be a ghost? I don't know. I think it's the sound of wings flapping. There's a light ahead, I see something moving. They came to the end of the corridor and saw a brightly lit room with a high vaulted ceiling. Countless birds, as dazzling as jewels, fluttered around the room. A heavy wooden door opposite the room. Do you think they'll attack us if we cross the room? Ron asked. It's possible. Harry said. They don't look vicious, but if they all rush over at once, I'm afraid, never mind, there's no other way anyway, let's run over 3. Harry took a deep breath, shielded his face with his arms, and rushed to the other end of the room. He thought sharp mouths and claws would tear him apart at any moment, but nothing happened. He came to the door unscathed and pulled the handle, but the door was locked. William knew that these things would not attack, but he pretended to be unaware and followed Hermione and the others. Harry and the others pulled and pushed, but the wooden door did not move at all, obviously it was under a spell. Hermione took out her wand and tried the Arahat opening charm, but it did not work. What should we do? Ron asked. Harry and Hermione looked at William, obviously asking if William had any solution. You guys move aside for a moment, let me take a look. As soon as William finished speaking, Harry and the other two moved aside obediently, and William went forward to check the condition of the wooden door. With his sharp eyesight, he could tell at once that the door was cast with an anti-arachno opening charm, which was specifically designed to counter the arachno opening charm. This anti-unlocking charm was invented by a wizard named Blagden in the early 17th century. At that time, his house was burglarized 19 times with the unlocking charm within 2 weeks. He was so angry that he invented this anti-unlocking charm in a rage. The effect was very good, and it really didn't happen again after that. There are thieves who are capable of visiting his house. This kind of spell is widely used in the Ministry of Magic. After all, there are many confidential things there, and confidentiality must be paid attention to. This shows that this anti-unlocking spell is very reliable, otherwise it would not be widely used by the Ministry of Magic. William tried to use the stop spell to make the anti-unlocking spell lose its effect, but unfortunately it didn't work. He tried 2 other antidotes, but they didn't work either. William guessed that this might be the work of Dumbledore, and it was indeed not so easy to deal with. In this case, there is no other way, William can only use his ultimate move. All the spells are over. A blue light flashed, and the anti-unlocking spell on the wooden door dissipated instantly. Then William used the Arahawk to open the wooden door in front of him. It's really not that simple. Let's go in. William smiled and pushed open the wooden door and walked in. Hermione and the others hurriedly followed. The second room was dark, but as soon as they stepped in, the room suddenly lit up, illuminating a shocking scene. They were standing next to a huge chessboard. In front of them were black chess pieces. Those chess pieces were taller than them and seemed to be carved out of black stone or something. At the other end of the room, facing them, were some white chess pieces. Wow! William was startled. Not to mention Harry, Ron and Hermione, they were trembling with fear. The faces of those towering white chess pieces opposite had no facial features, which was really creepy. What should we do now? Harry asked quietly. Isn't it obvious? Ron said, we have to play chess to get to the other side of the room. They saw a door behind the white chess piece. How do you play? Hermione asked nervously. I think, Ron said, we have to act as pawns. He walked over to a black knight and touched the knight's horse. Immediately, the stone came alive, the horse pawed the ground with its hooves, and the knight turned his helmeted head and looked at Ron. Do we have to go with you guys? The black knight nodded. Ron turned and looked at William and the others. Maybe, we don't need to go through so much trouble, we can just push forward. William held the magic wand and was ready to move. Ron was stunned. William, are you sure? Let's try it. If it doesn't work, we can play chess again. William shrugged and said noncommittally. Well, let's try it. William nodded. You guys step back, so as not to be accidentally hurt later. Hearing this, Hermione and the other 2 obediently retreated to the door. William then waved his wand and began to deal with these faceless chess pieces on the opposite side. In order not to attract attention, William could not use some spells that would cause explosions. God's sword without shadow. Professor Snape's spell is still useful. There is no brilliant color, and the soldier chess piece on the opposite side is cut into 2 pieces, and the cut surface is very smooth. Cool. What kind of spell is this? So powerful. Ron exclaimed. Then William cut all the chess pieces on the other side into 2 pieces in no time. Hermione and the other 2 were stunned. Is it so powerful? Come back to your senses, we should leave now. William waved his hand to remind them to hurry up. Oh, here it comes, here it comes. They came to another door. Come in. William pushed the door open. A disgusting stench hit their noses, and they had to lift up their clothes to cover their noses. The smoke also brought tears to the eyes of the 4 people. Through their blurred tears, they saw a giant monster. This giant monster was even bigger than the one William caught last time. It lay motionless on the floor in front of it, unconscious, with a bloody lump on its head. That's great. We don't have to fight this troll. Harry whispered. They stepped quickly over the troll's thick legs. Let's go, I can't breathe. Harry opened the next door, and for a moment, the 4 of them didn't dare to look at what was waiting for them next. However, there was nothing scary here, only a table with 7 bottles of different shapes placed on it. Snape's magic, Harry said, what should we do? As soon as they stepped over the threshold, a flame suddenly rose behind them, sealing the door. This flame was unusual and purple. At the same time, black flames jumped out of the door leading to the front. They were trapped in the middle. Look. Hermione grabbed a roll of parchment next to the bottle. William stood behind her and read with her. Danger is in front of you, safety is behind you, 0.3. There are two of us who can help you. Drink them, one will lead you forward, and the other will send you back to where you were. Two of them are filled with nettle wine, three are killers, waiting in line. Choose, unless you want to stay here forever. We also provide 4 clues to help you choose. First, no matter how cunningly the poison hides, they are actually standing on the left side of the nettle wine. Second, the contents of the bottles at the left and right ends are different, and if you want to move forward, they will not be useful to you. Third, you will find that the bottles are of different sizes, and there is no death hidden in the giants and dwarfs. Fourth, the second on the left and the second on the right, although they look different, taste the same. That's brilliant, said Hermione. It's not magic, it's logic, it's a riddle. Many of the greatest wizards have no ability to make logical inferences, so they are trapped here forever. William smiled and did not refute Hermione. She was still too immature and inexperienced. As long as you are strong enough, nothing can trap you. Besides, how could the greatest wizards have no ability to make logical inferences? If that were the case, he would not be called the greatest wizard. What about us? We can't get out either, right? Of course not, said Hermione. Everything we need to know is written on this piece of paper. 7 bottles. 3 are poison, 2 are wine, 1 will take us safely through the black fire, and the other will send us back through the purple fire. But how do we know which bottle to drink? Give me a minute. William did not break through violently this time. He planned to let Hermione leave here, so as not to hurt her in a fight. Hermione read the paper several times. She walked back and forth in front of the 6 rows of bottles, talking to herself, pointing at this or that bottle. Finally, she clapped her hands happily. Got it, she said. This smallest bottle can help us pass through the black flames. Get the Philosopher's Stone. William looked at the inconspicuous little bottle, which contained very little potion, probably only 1 sip. Then he asked, which bottle can make you pass through the purple flames and return? Hermione pointed to a round bottle on the far right. You drink that bottle. William said, don't interrupt me, listen to me. When you get back, get the broom from the room with the flying keys. I saw one there a while ago. It will carry you through the trapdoor, past Fluffy. Then you go straight to the Ollery and send Elise to deliver a letter to Dumbledore. We need him for support. There might not only be Snape inside, but also Voldemort. I might be able to temporarily contain Voldemort, and Harry and Ron can work together to hold Snape back, but we are definitely no match for them. Only Dumbledore can defeat them, so Hermione, your mission is very important. Whether we can stop Voldemort from making a comeback depends on you. Of course, what William said were all lies. He just wanted to keep Hermione away from here to avoid being hurt by Voldemort. After all, although William is powerful, the reality changes rapidly, and he cannot guarantee that he can protect Hermione without fail. So it is better to let her leave here and get out of danger completely. Hermione's lips trembled, and she suddenly rushed to William, stretched out her arms and hugged him. Hermione is obedient. William, you are an amazing wizard. Harry and Ron looked confused. Didn't they ask for their opinions? Just decided directly. Of course, they had no objection to this. As Hermione was the only girl among them, she must be allowed to do something safer. As for the danger, William, the person who arranged the task, was in the most dangerous place, so they had nothing to say. William patted Hermione on the back and said with a smile. Okay Hermione, drink the potion and leave here first, then go and inform Dumbledore as soon as possible. Okay. Hermione agreed. She took a big sip from the round bottle on the right and shuddered all over. It's not poison, is it? Harry asked worriedly. No, but it's like ice, freezing cold. William urged. Hurry up, go, it will lose its effect in a while. Good luck, be careful. Let's go. Hermione turned around and walked straight through the purple flames. After Hermione left, Harry looked at the potion in the smallest bottle and asked, these potions are only enough for 1 person. William, do you have any ideas? As he spoke, he had already grabbed the bottle. If there was no other way, Harry planned to go in alone. Don't worry, I have a way. You two should be ready for battle. William reminded Harry and Ron, and then walked to the front of the black flame. All curses are over. This trick always works. A blue light flashed, and the black flames in front of him slowly dissipated, revealing the scene behind the door. There was still a room behind the door, but there was already a person in it. It was not Snape, nor Voldemort. It was Quirrell. William had expected this, but Harry and Ron were stunned. They had always suspected Snape, but why was the person in front of them Quirrell? Harry was a little breathless. What's going on? Where's Snape? Ron was confused. Quirrell smiled. Now his face didn't twitch at all. It's me, he said calmly. I was just wondering if I would see you here, Potter. I didn't expect that no one else came here except you, Potter. It's really interesting. But I thought. Snape. Quirrell laughed. This laughter was not his usual shrill trill, but a chilling sneer. Yeah, Snape doesn't really look like a good guy, does he? He flies around like a giant bat, which is helpful to us. With him there with 623, who would doubt poor, stammering Professor Quirrell. Harry couldn't believe it. It couldn't be true, it couldn't be. But Snape once tried to kill me. No, it's me who wants to kill you. Quirrell shook his head smugly. During that Quidditch match, Mr. Cavendish next to you accidentally knocked me down. Oh, maybe it wasn't accidental. Quirrell looked at William's calm appearance, as if William had known all this for a long time. He broke my gaze on you. If he had held on for a few more seconds, I would have thrown you off my broomstick. If Snape hadn't been there, casting a breaking spell to save your life, I would have thrown you to death. Snape wants to save me. Harry was shocked. Of course, Chilo said coldly. Why did he referee your second match? He wanted to make sure I didn't hurt you again. It's ridiculous. He shouldn't have bothered with that. I can't do anything with Dumbledore around. The other teachers thought Snape wanted to stop Gryffindor from winning, and he certainly made himself unpopular. But all this is a waste of time. No matter what, I must kill you tonight. Quirrell snapped his fingers. In a flash, several ropes appeared out of nowhere and tied up Harry and the other two tightly. William did not resist. He planned to let Quirrell guide Harry to get the Philosopher's Stone first, and then it would not be too late to take action. You are too nosy to be allowed to live, Potter. On Halloween, you were wandering around the school, and I knew right away that you saw me checking the mechanism of the Philosopher's Stone. And Mr. Cavendish, you have repeatedly sabotaged my actions. Die with Potter today. As for Ron, Quirrell didn't care at all. Just treat him as an extra. You let the troll in. Of course I do. I have a special way of dealing with trolls. You must have seen what I did to that fellow in that room over there. Unfortunately, when everyone was rushing around looking for the troll, Snape, who had long been suspicious of me, rushed directly to the 4th floor and tried to stop me. But it was a little strange that my troll had disappeared. But that was not important. It was a pity that the three-headed dog had not bitten off Snape's leg. The troll was captured by William. It seemed that William had ruined Quirrell's plans time and again. Okay, just wait quietly. I need to take a closer look at this interesting mirror. Behind Quirrell stood a very tall and luxurious mirror. William guessed it should be the mirror of Arised. This mirror is the key to finding the Philosopher's Stone. Quirrell muttered, tapping the mirror frame around. Only Dumbledore could come up with something like this, but he's in London now. By the time he comes back, I'll be long gone. William leaned close to Harry's ear and whispered, Harry, keep talking to attract Quirrell's attention. I'll try to break free from the ropes and save you. In fact, these ropes had no effect on William. He could break free with just a little effort. He just wanted Harry to communicate more with Quirrell and induce Quirrell to tell him how to get the Philosopher's Stone. Harry understood and nodded. He also wanted to distract Quirrell and not let him focus on the magic mirror. I saw you and Snape in the Forbidden Forest, he said rashly. That's right. Quirrell said lazily, turning behind the mirror to check. He had been keeping an eye on me by then, wanting to know how far I had progressed. He has always been suspicious of me. He wants to scare me, but how can he scare me? I have Voldemort as my backer. Quirrell turned back from behind the mirror and stared greedily into it. I have seen the Philosopher's Stone. I am presenting it to my master, but where is it hidden? Harry could not wait for William any longer. He began to struggle to free himself from the ropes that bound him, but he was getting tighter and tighter. He had to stop Quirrell from focusing all his attention on the magic mirror. But Snape always seemed to hate me so much. Oh, he does hate you. Quirrell said carelessly. Of course he hates you. He went to Hogwarts with your father. Didn't you know that? They hate each other, but he never wanted you to die. Harry added, but I heard you crying a few days ago. I thought Snape was threatening you. Hearing this, a trace of fear flashed across Quirrell's face for the first time. Sometimes, he said, I find it difficult to obey the orders of my master, who is a great wizard and my power is so weak. Are you saying that he was the one in the classroom with you? Harry asked in surprise. He's with me wherever I go, Quirrell said quietly. I met him while traveling around the world. I was a silly young man with absurd ideas about good and evil. It was Voldemort who pointed out my mistakes. There is no good or evil in the world, only power and those incompetent people who cannot obtain power. Since then, I have served him faithfully, though I have disappointed him many times, and he has always been very hard on me. Quirrell shuddered suddenly. He never forgave me for my mistakes easily, and was very upset when I failed to steal the Philosopher's Stone from Gringotts. He punished me, and decided to keep a closer eye on me from now on. Quirrell's voice gradually became so low that it could not be heard. Hearing Quirrell's words, William felt that he was still a silly boy. Wouldn't it be good to be a free man? Why did he have to be Voldemort's dog? And he shouldn't know what it meant that villains died because of their talkativeness. Otherwise, why would he say so much, and they were all about private matters? Harry remembered the time he went to Diagon Alley. Why didn't he think of it at the time? He clearly saw Quirrell that day and shook hands with him in the leaky cauldron. Quirrell lowered his voice and cursed. I really don't understand. Is the Philosopher's Stone hidden in the mirror? Should I break the mirror? Harry's mind was spinning rapidly. My biggest wish at this moment, he thought, is to find the Philosopher's Stone before Quirrell. So, if I look at the magic mirror, I should see that I have found the stone, which means I can see where the stone is hidden. But how can I look at the magic mirror without being discovered by Quirrell? He tried to move quietly to the left, trying to get in front of the mirror when Quirrell wasn't paying attention. However, the stone that entangled his feet was tangled in his hands. The rope was so tight that he tripped and fell to the ground. Quirrell ignored him and continued talking to himself. What's going on with this mirror? What exactly does it do? Help me, master. A voice suddenly sounded, and the voice seemed to come from Quirrell himself. Use that boy, use that boy. Quirrell turned to Harry. Okay, Potter, come up. He clapped his hands again, and the ropes that bound Harry loosened automatically. Harry stood up slowly. Come here, Quirrell repeated, look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry went over to him. I have to lie to him, he thought desperately. I have to look in the mirror first, and then make up a lie to deceive him, that's it. Quirrell came up behind him. Harry smelled a strange smell, which seemed to come from the scarf on Quirrell's head. He closed his eyes, stood in front of the mirror, and then opened his eyes. He saw himself in the mirror. At first, his face was pale and his expression was panic, but after a moment, he smiled. Harry in the mirror reached into his pocket, took out a bright red stone, then blinked and put the stone back into his pocket. At this moment, Harry felt that something heavy really fell into his pocket. It was incredible, he actually got the Philosopher's Stone like this. William's mouth corners rose slightly. He had been watching Harry's every move, so he noticed the moment Harry got the Philosopher's Stone. The time came, William struggled with both hands slightly, and the rope that tied him broke directly. However, the movement on his side did not alarm Quirrell at all, because Quirrell's attention was on Harry. How is it? Quirrell asked impatiently, what did you see? Facing Quirrell's questioning, Harry mustered up his courage. I saw myself shaking hands with Dumbledore, he made up, I won the House Cup for Gryffindor. Quirrell cursed at the words. Get out of my way. Harry was pushed aside, and he felt the Philosopher's Stone against his thigh. Did he dare to run away with the Philosopher's Stone now? But he had taken less than 5 steps when he heard a sharp voice speaking, and Quirrell's lips did not move at all. He is lying. He is lying. Potter, come back here. Quirrell shouted. At this moment, Harry saw William break free from the rope. At this moment, he made a bold decision. William, catch it, run. Harry shouted, took out the Philosopher's Stone from his pocket and threw it to William, who then turned and rushed towards Quirrell. All this happened in a flash, and Quirrell had no time to react. William was also very surprised. He didn't expect Harry to do this, but he still subconsciously grabbed the Philosopher's Stone. Potter. You're looking for death. Quirrell was furious when he realized what was happening. However, facing Harry who had already rushed in front of him, he had no time to cast any spells. And his target was the Philosopher's Stone, so he kicked Harry out. Harry fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out. He felt a tightness in his chest and a sharp pain in the scar on his forehead. He felt as if his head was about to split in two. He shouted loudly and struggled desperately. Ron, you go take care of Harry, I'll deal with him. William waved his hand to untie the rope on Ron and warned. Ron didn't hesitate at all and ran directly to Harry. Quirrell didn't stop him either, because all his thoughts were on William and the Philosopher's Stone. And Voldemort's voice kept urging him, catch him. Catch him. Grab the Philosopher's Stone. William put away the Philosopher's Stone, and didn't waver at all in the face of Quirrell, who had a ferocious and violent face. I don't know if Quirrell was arrogant or for some other reason, but he didn't even have a wand in his hand. You know, a wizard has 2 levels of strength with and without a wand. Not to mention, Quirrell's strength wasn't that strong. William BFCI couldn't figure out how he had the courage to grab the Philosopher's Stone. After all, they had fought in the Forbidden Forest before, and they should know that William was not weak. Maybe it was because the Philosopher's Stone was right in front of them, and Quirrell and Voldemort were a little dizzy, William thought. Although he was thinking about it, William's movements were very decisive. Smash to pieces. A flash of lightning shot out from William's wand and instantly hit Quirrell who was rushing over. No! Quirrell roared in fear, and the next moment, he was hit by William's crushing curse and exploded into pieces. William curled his lips. He thought he would have to fight for hundreds of rounds, but he didn't expect that he couldn't take a single move. However, William did not relax his vigilance. Voldemort attached to Quirrell was not so easy to die. As expected, a gray mist spread from Quirrell's fragments, and finally formed a hideous soul. Roar! Before William could make a move, the soul made a sharp sound and rushed out of the secret room at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, Harry also screamed and fainted. Harry! Harry! Ron exclaimed, William, come and have a look, what happened to Harry? William hurried to Harry's side and leaned over to check on Harry's condition. Harry was not in any danger, but his close contact with Voldemort may have activated the fragments of Voldemort's soul in him, which caused him to faint. Harry is fine, he just fainted. Ron, don't worry. William said. Ron breathed a sigh of relief and finally felt relieved. He had time to think about what happened just now. William, I didn't expect you to be so capable and to have solved Quirrell in such a short time. By the way, what was that great thing that ran so fast? William shrugged. You don't want to know, so forget about it and pretend you didn't see it. He said this for Ron's sake. After all, Voldemort was a psychological shadow to Ron, and he didn't even dare to mention his name. Unfortunately, Ron was too curious and a little too proud, so he asked in disbelief, if you don't tell me, how do you know I won't want to know? In this case, William could only respect Ron's thoughts. Well, since you want to know, I'll tell you, I hope you won't regret it, that is Voldemort's soul. The soul of the mysterious man. Ron exclaimed. That's right. William took advantage of Ron's shock and waved his sleeves to put the mirror of Arise standing not far away into his sleeves. After a long while, Ron calmed down and turned to ask William again, William, are you sure that is really the soul of the mysterious man? I'm not sure, it's useless. Anyway, he has run away. Well, let's take Harry back. William ended the topic and waved his wand to cast a spell to make Harry float up. Let's go. Oh. Ron agreed, but he looked absent-minded, and must still be thinking about Voldemort. William controlled Harry to float out of the room, and met Dumbledore and Hermione who came hurriedly. Harry, when Hermione saw Harry's unconscious state, she thought that Harry had met with an accident and her voice suddenly choked up. However, Dumbledore went straight to Harry with a calm face and checked his condition. When he found that Harry was not seriously injured, the expression on his face was much relieved. Hermione, Harry just fainted. William reminded her. Hermione heaved a sigh of relief and asked William hurriedly, William, are you okay? What happened in there? I'm fine. As for what happened inside, Let's take Harry to the hospital first and then talk about it slowly. As soon as William finished speaking, Dumbledore smiled and nodded and said, Mr. Cavendish is right. Let's take Harry to the hospital first and talk about other things slowly. Dumbledore's voice seemed to calm people's hearts, and Hermione relaxed. Not long after, they returned to the castle and sent Harry to the hospital. Madame Pomfrey checked Harry's injuries and left him in the hospital for treatment. William and the other two were invited by Dumbledore to visit his office. Even though it was almost 3 or 4 in the morning, they were still invited to Dumbledore's office. After all, it was about the Philosopher's Stone and Voldemort, and Dumbledore couldn't take it lightly. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel.